Okay, welcome back to the next part of the video. In the last video, we completed our ride to orbit using the Falcon Heavy. And we got the XR2 separated from the Falcon Heavy and did a little bit of last minute plane alignment. And now we're basically ready to get everything underway. What we're going to need to do in this, before we actually come around and do the ejection, is we're going to want to set up a maneuver, because when we set up the plan for going out to Venus, we come up with a eject date of 565837470, and we're actually going to be doing our eject here in less than 45 minutes, so we're not going to be doing our eject according to the date that we have here. And that will always happen when you set up these transx plans. It will always be the case that whatever eject date you come up with is going to be a little bit different than what you actually end up with when you end up in orbit. So the best way to basically solve that problem is to set up a maneuver once you get up in orbit. So we'll come over to stage 1 over here, and we'll turn maneuver mode on. And we'll go through the variables, and the first variable that we want is prograde, and what we want to do is we want to put in the amount of prograde that we see over here in this line that says delta V. And we don't have to concern ourselves with the fact that this number might go up or down by one, decimal point. So we'll just, whatever we see right now, that's the number we'll put in, and that's 4029. So that's what we're going to put in here, 4.2. So let's do an adjustment. 3.8, let's do an adjustment. And 4.04. Let's do an adjustment, and we're looking for 4029, and we'll do an adjustment. And once we have that number matching what we see here, we then go to the date, and we go all the way to the hyper setting, and it's actually easier just to go backwards. So minus AJ twice gets you over to hyper. Now we're going to swing this around until it lays straight over top as much as possible of what we see over here. And you can tell here we're just a little bit ahead, and you can see here we're a little bit behind. So we just want to get it as close as we can over top of that, and it won't be absolutely perfect, but we can get it as close as we can. Okay, now we have this issue where, when we go forward and we look at the feature stages, we don't have any, transx isn't showing us this maneuver because it's basically giving priority to the escape plan. So what we do to resolve that is in view escape plan, we go through our variables. Actually, I'm sorry, we go to stage 2, and in our eject plan, I always say that backwards. We go to our eject plan and we eliminate all of our velocity. And we do that by just going through these variables and resetting them. So prograde being the first one that comes up, we'll just go backwards to reset. Then we go to outward, go backwards to reset. And then we go to change plane, go backwards to reset. And now that we've reset all those variables, we can see here in this stage, let me bring up stage 2 on this side and have stage 1 over here. It always makes more sense to me, because I read left to right, to have the stage 1 over there and stage 2 over here. But anyway, now that we've got now that we've got all those variables reset, we can now see how our maneuver looks in this stage. So on stage 1, we want view maneuver, and I can also see that my setup has to change. So we'll come around to graph projection, and I like focus better for this view. And now we have escape plan here. And now we kind of have to go forward through our stages, and to a large extent we have to redo a lot of what we did while we were on the ground, because now we're doing it through a maneuver. Okay, so first of all, let's go forward to, let's look at stage 2 here, and we can see our closest approach to Venus is off by 650. So we'll play with our variables here and bring that down. Start with prograde, and adding in positive isn't helping, so let's go backwards. And once we get this number down to a certain point, yeah, you can see here in stage 3, now we can actually see the slingshot, whereas when the number is, let me make it bigger, not sure where it has to be exactly, let's go 500, let's go 600, 650, yeah. Anyway, when that closest approach is too high, when you're looking at stage 3, you can't see you don't see where you're at. So all you need to do is bring the closest approach down at least enough so that you have this information here. Once you have this information here, then we can go to view the slingshot, and we can now start adjusting our variables based on what we have here, rather than just looking strictly at the closest approach in stage 2. So I'm just putting in negative prograde, and I can see that kind of swinging around, coming out the other side. So now I want to use a different variable. We'll go to a bit of plane change. And we'll come back around to prograde. And I just have to go around the variables and just kind of see what works. I don't really have a specific plan here. I'm just playing around and seeing what works and what doesn't. Take a sip of water. And I can adjust the date a little bit. I've got a little bit of room to play with, not a lot, but a little bit. And that's really super sensitive, so we're not going to use the date. Let's see what outward does. Bringing the relative inclination down. So let's toggle between outward and prograde for a moment. Yeah, that doesn't really seem to be helping. If we go around this way with plane change, and then a little bit of prograde. And there's always a way to resolve it. It sometimes takes a little while to figure it out, but you just have to be persistent. Okay, let's see if I bring plane change all the way around this way. Add in just a little bit more, and then come over to prograde. And let's go back around to plane change. And then back over to prograde. Yeah, it does look like that's getting closer. Slowly. Just check my fuel cost. Okay, we're still around the 4,000 range. Alright, there we go. See, it just becomes a matter of playing around and figuring it out. Now we're obviously still off a bit, but we're in the ballpark now. You can see there. Now before we bother fine-tuning the Slingshot, let's go forward to stage 5 on that side and stage 4 on this side and resolve the difference at Earth. So we'll go to Sling Direct. And a few clicks here and there. And that was pretty simple. Okay, back to and now we just go back and forth until the minimum altitude's all the way down. Same thing we did while we were still on the ground. And you can see each time we go past, it gets a little bit closer. The minimum altitude's now down to 32, 28, 25, 23, 21. Now as we bottom out, we'll just keep going this way a little bit. Out to, say, 40, that's good. Now we'll go the other way with outward. And there we have it. And almost hit reset. Okay, so that's got a minimum altitude at Earth of 158, PE velocity of 14 kilometers per second, which is higher than I would like. But we'll see if we can make it work. If not, we'll burn up and die when we get back to Earth. And it will all have been for naught. Now what we want to do is come back to stage 3, and let me do one thing here. Let me check where we are in our orbit. We're a quarter of an orbit away from the eject point, so we've got, what is it, 90 minutes, be full orbit, 45 minutes, a half an orbit. So we're only about 20 minutes away, so we need to try to get this resolved quickly. And if we miss it, if we don't get all this figured out by the time we get to this point, then we'll just have to go around one more time. Okay, so stage 2 here, stage 3 here. We need to get our relative inclination worked out. Actually, we want stage 1 on this side. And we want view maneuver. There we go. Now we'll just see maybe if outward helps. Kind of make a mental note that outward is currently bringing down both variables, so I'll just try to remember that. Let's see what plane change does at this point. Plane change is bringing down the relative inclination, but it's raising the PE ratio. So let's go, say, to that point. Now let's see what prograde does. So prograde's bringing down the PE ratio. Let's go down to there. Let's go to change plane now. And prograde. And we're getting close. Prograde. Change plane. Very close, very close. See what happens with outward now, because remember outward was bringing down both of them at the same time. I'm going to say that's good enough. Now let's go forward to stage 5. And on stage 4 on this side. Because since we made those changes, then our Earth encounter is a bit off. And it may, I'm not entirely sure if it's necessary to do this much refinement. It may not be. But certainly doesn't hurt anything. So now we'll just go to outward and do a few clicks. And then inclination angle, a couple clicks. And there we are, we're back at Earth. So we're all set up. Now I'm going to go ahead and keep going, but what I'm going to do, this is a good save point. Anytime you have a burn coming up, it's never a bad idea to save before getting to that point. So here we have our burn coming up at that point. So I'm going to Control S, and that way if something goes bad with the burn, we can pick up from this point. A couple things, let's go to View Maneuver and do an update here. And we should always be updating as we're making changes, because you'll see that, you know, just as any amount of time passes, you know, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, a few minutes, things change. But it should hopefully not be by too much. Let's bring up View Maneuver then, or rather View Target. This thing is what I'm talking about. And we got our burn coming up in 763 seconds, so about 12, 13 minutes, something like that. But before we get to that point, let's look at Orbit MFD. Yeah, I guess we possibly could have circularized the orbit over there if we wanted to. We missed that opportunity, so we're kind of on our way back down now. It would have been ideal if we had circularized the orbit. Things will be a little bit off since we didn't, but hopefully won't be by too much. Let's press F8 to look at this view, see if there's anything that we need to open or change. I think it all looks good. So we'll go ahead and go forward to the burn, and we'll complete the burn, and then that will be the end of this part of the video. And again, I did save just a moment ago, so if anything goes bad with the burn, then we can pick back up and try again. Should have brought more water in here. Okay.
Rotation.
Can put in a couple taps of rotation and get over toward the prograde position. And that will warp time forward to the time to begin the burn. Getting close to that point, let's get rotated. And we'll bring up burn time calculator on this side, just out of curiosity to watch our estimate total DV. Actually won't do us any good because I have to put in the extra fuel mass in order to see an accurate estimate total DV, and the extra fuel mass doesn't count down as you burn fuel, so it actually won't do us any good to have that open. Coming up on the burn in just 30 seconds. When you engage the main engines on the XR2, it's got to be like, you know, it's got to be a pretty harsh jolt for the crew, because you go from 0 gravity, you know, 0 G's all the way to you know, 1.6 in just, you know, a snap of your finger, and it tops out at like 2 something G. So I mean, that's got to be a pretty solid jolt. Okay, so we just have to keep our green X lined up. Take a look outside. Doing our burn on the daylight side, luckily. And I'm in no big hurry here, so I'm not gonna time warp through the burn. No point in getting in a rush and screwing things up. Watch here as our orbit goes hyperbolic. Watch our eccentricity. We can look inside and see our fuel usage. We just went through the tank. So now we're burning fuel out of the main tank, and we could shortly just transfer fuel over from the RCS, because we're only going to use, I would think we're only going to use, you know, 10% or 15% of RCS for, you know, pitching and yawing and linear translation. So I think we can transfer most of it to the main tank, but we won't worry about that until we're getting close to that time where we actually might need that fuel. So Gonna get the X lined up a little bit. And everything's looking pretty good. Crew is experiencing 2.05 G, so 2 times Earth's gravity. Do a little bit of a correction here for a green X. We're now escaping Earth. Our velocity is high enough to escape Earth, I mean. Keeping a close eye on the delta V as we get down close to the bottom. I want to start reducing the engines here before too long. Because it gets away from you pretty quickly if you don't, and we definitely cannot afford to waste fuel. Okay, reducing main engines. And we did overshoot it just a little bit.
Translation.
So all that stuff I was talking about for not wasting fuel. Okay, now I'm not going to worry about getting that X lined up for that last little bit. What I've discovered that I like better is going over to the maneuver and turning maneuver mode off. And then I'll use translation, wow, that's pretty far out, to adjust for whatever future stage I have. In this case, my future stage is that Slingshot. So what I want to do, instead of tinkering around, you know, with up, down, sideways translation and all that to get that green X lined up, which would do me no good, what I really want to do is do those translation maneuvers to get the PE ratio and the relative inclination looking better.
Rotation.
So let's get lined up here.
Translation.
And we're just going to use control thrust because we really don't know what is what's what at this point. Okay, so that's, and let's see if a little bit of, okay, so a little bit of prograde or forward momentum is making the PE ratio worse. So let's back off. That's bringing down both the relative inclination and the PE ratio. So right now I'm just holding down 9 and I'm actually not using control thrust at the moment. You can see the PE ratio coming down. But now let's see about a relative inclination using a little bit of 1. That's bringing the relative inclination down more quickly, but boy, that's got a long way to go. So a little bit of lateral and a little bit of forward translation seems to be helping the most at the moment. I think we're getting there. And here in a moment I'll look just to see how much RCS this is costing me. This is costing me more than I expected it would. But I didn't want to start heading away from Earth with our numbers looking really bad. We're not going to worry about stage 5 at this point. That's not bad, and we've got a long way to go, and this will change significantly, but right out of the gate I want to make sure that we're looking good on our numbers. Okay, let's look at inside. Actually, we used quite a bit of RCS for that. 10%. Let's hope we don't have to do much more of that. Speaking of fuel, let's look at burn time calculator. And we have 403 meters left. Ouch. Let's see how much RCS. 717. So we've got a total of 784. Wow, this is really going to be cutting it close on this mission. May have to throw a couple of crew members out on the out of the airlock to save the rest. Sacrifice one for the many or something like that. Now, if I were Dimitri, I'd be looking at this number and I'd say, no sweat. That's 10 times more fuel than we need. Okay, so we've completed the eject burn, and I think it makes for a good stopping point. So let's Control S to save here. Make sure that we have transx loaded on at least one side. And we do, so it's okay to save. And when we come back, we'll continue the journey. Hope you enjoyed this part of the video. If you liked it, leave me a comment down below, and I'll see you in the next part.